To understand Marvel's biggest problem today, you have to go back to the moment everything clicked. The moment audiences realized the MCU wasn't just a collection of superhero movies. It was a story with stakes, with heart, and with a villain powerful enough to hold it all together. That moment was Thanos, when Josh Brolin's Mad Titan finally stepped out of the shadows in Avengers. Infinity War, it wasn't just another comic book villain making threats. This was a fully realized force of nature. Marvel spent years, literally years, building him up through teases, post-credit scenes, and whispered warnings. He didn't just appear. He arrived like a storm you saw on the horizon, but couldn't stop. And the brilliance of Thanos wasn't just his strength, it was his logic. He wasn't out to destroy the universe just because he was evil. He believed he was saving it. Twisted, sure. Ruthless, absolutely. But logical in a way that made him terrifying. His calm delivery, his brutal efficiency, and his absolute belief in his mission set him apart from every mustache-twirling villain we'd seen before. And then came the snap. One finger snap, and half of existence was gone. Spider-Man, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, heroes we thought were untouchable, turned to dust before our eyes. That wasn't just a plot twist. It was a cultural earthquake. For the first time in comic book movie history, the villain won. That moment did two things. It cemented Thanos as one of the greatest villains in film history. It set an almost impossible standard for everything that came after. Because once audiences experienced a villain that devastating, that iconic, that universally feared, the bar was raised forever. Fans expected every new threat to hit that same level. Every new villain needed to feel big, intimidating, and inevitable. And here's the problem. Marvel hasn't delivered. Since Endgame, the MCU has tried, they've tried, to capture that magic again. But with every new project, from Disney Plus shows to theatrical releases, the villains have felt smaller, weaker, and more forgettable. Instead of another Thanos, audiences got rushed villains with no build-up, weak motivations, or wasted potential. And the truth is, this isn't just nitpicking from hardcore fans. You can see it in box office numbers. You can hear it in the conversations online. When people walked out of Infinity War, they couldn't stop talking about Thanos. When people walked out of Thor, Love and Thunder, they couldn't stop asking, how did Marvel waste Christian Bale like that? So here's the setup for where we're going next. Thanos wasn't just Marvel's greatest villain. He broke the formula. He showed us what a villain could be. And in doing so, he exposed how weak most of Marvel's others really were. Here's where things get brutally clear. Once Marvel closed the book on Avengers, Endgame, they didn't just lose Tony Stark, they lost the greatest villain in comic book movie history. And ever since, the MCU has been stumbling, trying to fill that vacuum with villains who feel more like placeholders than threats. Because say what you want about Marvel's formula, but the truth is simple. Thanos worked. He was built up across 10 years. He wasn't a one-movie wonder. He was a looming presence in the background of multiple films, with every post-credit scene tightening attention. By the time he walked onto the screen in Infinity War, fans already knew him, feared him, and respected him. And when he snapped half the universe away, it didn't just shock audiences. It made them believe he could actually win. Now compare that to what came after. Take Eternals and their villain, Crow. Can you even remember his name without Googling? Exactly. He was CGI sludge with no build-up, no weight, and no presence. Then there's Taskmaster in Black Widow, hyped up in trailers as a deadly mimic fighter, but in the film, reduced to a twist that left fans more disappointed than shocked. Or look at Thor, Love and Thunder. They had Christian Bale, one of the greatest actors alive, playing Gore the God Butcher. In the comics, Gore is terrifying, a relentless hunter of gods, driven by rage and tragedy. In the film, he was rushed, underused, and sidelined by jokes. Fans walked out thinking, how do you waste Christian Bale like that? That alone felt like a crime against storytelling. Then we get to the supposed next big bad, Kang the Conqueror. Marvel introduced him in Loki and Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. He was supposed to be the next Thanos-level threat. But instead of being intimidating, he debuted in a movie that audiences mostly shrugged off. When your universe-shattering villain shows up in Ant-Man 3, a film played for laughs, the stakes just don't feel real. Kang wasn't terrifying, he was confusing. And to make matters worse, the off-screen controversies surrounding Jonathan Majors have only deepened Marvel's villain crisis. And that's the heart of the problem. After Thanos, Marvel hasn't delivered a villain that feels bigger than life, terrifying, and inevitable. Every post-Endgame villain has been either wasted, forgettable, or overshadowed by mediocre storytelling. Mar-style blunt logic moment? Here it is. Heroes are only as strong as the villains they face. That's why Infinity War and Endgame worked. Thanos made the Avengers rise to their best. He pushed them to sacrifice, to fail, and to fight harder than ever before. Without him, the stakes were cosmic. After him, the MCU feels like it's throwing random bosses at the wall, but no one sticks. And audiences aren't blind. Social media is full of memes and posts calling Marvel villains mid, forgettable, or wasted potential. Even casual fans will tell you, it's not the same without Thanos. And they're right. The brutal reality? Marvel trained audiences to expect world-ending stakes and villains who shook the universe. But now, with Kang fizzling, Gore wasted, and everyone else forgettable, fans are left wondering, who are the heroes even fighting for? And here's the kicker, it's not just a storytelling flaw, it's a cultural one. The MCU is no longer dominating conversations like it used to, and a big part of that is because there's no central villain making audiences lean forward and say, oh my god, how are they going to stop this guy? Instead, it feels like Marvel is coasting. Throw in a villain, wrap them up in one movie, and move on. That formula might have worked a decade ago, but after Thanos, the bar is higher. Much higher. And unless Marvel figures it out, the villain problem isn't just going to haunt a few movies. It's going to sink the entire next phase of the MCU. That's the brutal truth. And that's the lesson Marvel still hasn't learned. Heroes are only as great as the villains they face. Thanos worked because he wasn't just a bad guy of the week. He was the spine of the entire Infinity Saga. Every film built toward him. Every hero was tested by him. And when he finally snapped his fingers, the entire audience felt it. That's why Infinity War and Endgame are still talked about years later. Because Marvel delivered a villain who made the universe feel fragile. But since then, villains have come and gone, none leaving a lasting mark. Kang was supposed to be the new Thanos, but his rollout has been shaky. Gore had potential, but was wasted. Taskmaster, Crow, the Flag Smashers, forgotten almost as quickly as they appeared. And that's why the MCU feels different now. Without a villain that truly terrifies, truly challenges, truly unites the story, the stakes feel smaller, the movies feel lighter, and the conversation fades faster. The brutal truth? Thanos didn't just raise the bar, he broke it. And until Marvel creates a villain who feels just as inevitable, just as dangerous, and just as unforgettable, the MCU will keep chasing its own shadow. Because in the end, heroes might get the spotlight, but it's the villain who makes the story legendary.